Right, I am Thabo Mdluli, and thank you very much for joining us tonight for our conversation on the state of the provinces in the country. Now, as the country heads towards the Easter holidays, what preparations are in place to ensure the safety of citizens as they travel across provinces in high volumes? And for our very first Premier's Roundtable, I'm joined by the Western Cape Premier, Alan Winde, KwaZulu-Natal Premier, Sihlezi Galala, Northwest Premier, Job Mokgoro, and Limpopo Premier Stanley Mathabata. You can be a part of the conversation tonight by tagging us on Twitter at Newsroom405 or WhatsApp your questions and your comments tonight to 072-110-5584. Premiers, good evening and thank you very much for your time tonight.
Good evening, Thabo.
Good evening.
Fantastic. I'll start with you, Premier Winde. SA, does it need a lockdown during this Easter period? Or all we need are just vaccines? What's your take?
I wish we had the vaccines right now. But I also, in the last PCC meeting, I think we've got regulation in place. Our numbers are looking okay. We're sitting in that trough between what is going to be expected as the third wave and the end of the second wave. We have some good monitoring mechanisms to make sure that we are monitoring where the risks are. We call them bushfires, and we zoom in and put them out. So I haven't supported further lockdown regulation, but what I do, and we put lots of communication out saying, citizens, please, we need to know that with this level of lockdown at one, it comes with responsibility, and this is the deal we've got to have. You know, government plays their part, but citizens must play their part, especially because it's a religious holiday and people are going to be going to church. There have been an increase in numbers, but we've got to make sure that we're doing it responsibly. We all know what to do. We've just got to keep doing it.
Behavioral change interventions, I mean, it's what many are calling for, particularly when it comes to dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic, in ensuring that it doesn't spread. Yes, we are still awaiting the vaccines, and when they will be made available, as I was saying earlier on, now the Johnson & Johnson vaccine has been approved for commercial use. So when we're talking about behavioral change interventions, how much money are you spending as a province in that regard?
Well, I've just put in an extra 20 million rand just into communication around the vaccines, because of course we've got to get to immunity. But in all of our main departments, behavior change is a big part of what we've been focusing on the last year. So it's from messaging to influence behavior change, right down to alcohol regulations, the messaging and the measurement around it. So I would estimate it's just in behavior change must be 130 to 150 million rand in the last year, and it'll be fairly similar going into this year's budget on bringing in our universities and our specialists and making sure that it's about communication and influencing, and then trying to see whether that behavior change makes a difference. We do analysis with questionnaires as well to see if we are getting it right, and I would say on the whole, we get it right. It's we have got lots of people adhering to the rules. Of course, there's the few that don't, but we've got to work on them.
Yeah, get it right. I'll come back to that in a moment because I want to know what is it that you are saying you're getting right. Premier Zigalala, let's talk then about your kicking off of the campaign yesterday. I mean, your strategy broadly is also around road safety during this Easter period. 1,279 vehicles, you're saying in total that you had stopped. What are you picking up as far as the behavior and the attitudes and the discipline of holiday makers and motorists who are coming into the province ahead of this Easter period?
Well, firstly, let us appreciate the opportunity. And secondly, KwaZulu-Natal is home to South Africa's domestic tourists. And therefore, you will expect that a majority of the people will be coming to KwaZulu-Natal. But we are quite happy with the manner in which visitors in KwaZulu-Natal so far are presenting themselves. You would see when people are traveling, even when they are in their own cars with families, they use masks, which shows that they are following the protocols and the preventative measures that were put in place. We are also emphasizing on road safety while also trying to cap the spread of COVID-19. We're also grateful to our hospitality industry that those hotels that are opened have embraced the call from government that we must all follow what we have prescribed as non-pharmaceutical preventative measures.
Now, Premier, let's look at the pressure point in the Eastern Cape, that long-distance taxi rank in Williams Road. What are the extra measures that you have put in place there to minimize the impact?
The first is to ensure that we deploy traffic police all over KwaZulu-Natal and target the long-distance taxis and ensure that in those we are strict on issues of prevention of COVID-19 spread. And I think we must thank the associations. However, there is still a lot that we need to do to conscientize and create an awareness among the people to ensure that they follow regulations as they are. We have also been monitoring registers where travelers are recorded down and checked whether they have also gone through processes before getting into taxis, and then we are then allowed to go. We are happy with the collaboration that have been established by the Department of Transport in KwaZulu-Natal and Taxi Association in as far as dealing with issues of COVID-19. And I think people who are going from KwaZulu-Natal to Eastern Cape and those who are coming from Eastern Cape to KZN will follow these protocols that we've outlined.
All right. Premier Matabata, I see alongside KZN and Mpumalanga, at least in the last 2 or so days, the reports are indicating 0 deaths in your provinces as we lead up to this Easter holiday. Is this a reflection of lesser infections happening, or at least the better treatment of those in hospitals who with active infection and them recovering at a much better pace? I mean, what would you attribute that number to?
I think let me also welcome the invitation to this forum. I think we should give it out to our people. Our people in the province have listened to us when we said they must behave responsibly. Our people have listened to us when we said to them, COVID-19 kills, and COVID-19 has got no feet. It is transported by us. It is not mobile. It is made mobile by us. So in the main, that message, I think our people have internalized it. Hence, you see, even the numbers, our numbers have gone down drastically. You know, that to me says our people have really listened to us.
Yeah. Premier Mkhoro, the high volume of vehicles, traffic that is making its way in and out of the province. I know you've made a plea for all road users to be responsible, passengers, pedestrians alike. But what are you doing? I mean, one would say what we have seen previously, for example, this time last year, the fact that we discouraged travel meant that there were less accidents. In fact, at some point we were reporting no accidents on the roads, and therefore also less chance of the virus moving about. What are we doing in the province there to encourage people, I suppose, to stay more in the province than to want to leave?
Yeah, certainly, because traveling in between provinces, traveling to be with family, to be with relatives is quite a major threat. And what we have been doing is to say we know that you need to be with family, but the non-pharmaceutical compliance, regulations, guidelines are very, very critical. The presence of law enforcement and increased presence of law enforcement officers on the road, I think helps a lot. The fact that we have such a good relationship with the taxi industry, the various associations within the taxi industry, I think the collective advantage that we get from there certainly shows that has been the case since the time of the festive season, and notwithstanding the second wave, the efforts that we put in there, we have ensured that we sustain this up to this time. The most serious threat, we believe, for a third wave to become a reality is the very encouraging statistics we see, where people might be inclined to relax and start doing things that will worsen our situation. But I must say, both on the road as well as pedestrians, we continue to be concerned about here and there spotting people who are not putting on masks, and we continue to encourage them to do that. Doing some work at one of our taxi ranks revealed quite a bit of information where people actually, if they are male, they tend to keep their masks in their pockets. If they are female, the masks are in the bags. So although on the whole, citizens on the road, on the pedestrian paths, are behaving much better than used to be the case, we believe that there is still a lot of room for improvement.
A lot of room for improvement indeed. Okay, we'll come back with the premiers in a moment, plus your thoughts at Newsroom 405. You can send us your WhatsApp messages 072-110-5584. We want to talk a little bit further about the recovery that they have seen with the relaxation of some of the restrictions as far as the economy is concerned, and what they are prioritizing in as far as they are spent. Some of the premiers have already delivered their State of the Province addresses, and some budgets have already been passed as well. So stay with us. We'll speak to them in a moment. Welcome back. You're with us here on the Newsfeed Late Night. It's the Premier's Roundtable looking ahead to the Easter weekend and the measures they have put in place as far as COVID-19 is concerned, but also how they have responded so far in the year that we have been living with this virus and the impact of the pandemic on the economies of the various provinces. Premier Wendy, let's begin with what you have outlined maybe a little bit in your State of the Province address. For example, you have identified early childhood development centers as essential services and part of the priority for you in a recovery. Explain the rationale and the thinking around that.
So first of all, I think that, especially during the last year and all of the lockdowns, we saw so many ECD centers closing and not able to open even after the regulation or the restrictions were limited. I think primarily customers weren't able to pay, and it was very difficult to get things open from sanitizers and masks. So we spent a lot of time focusing to help those ECD centers get open. And we declared it such because it is such an enabler for so many, specifically women, to be able to go out and look for a job or even get to work. And if you can't have your children looked after, that really slows everything down. And so that's why we were focusing on it, making sure we were helping them to get open, understanding what the restrictions were, whether it be the access to masks, or even some of the food vouchers. So it really was enabling them to get open, because their job that they do enables so many women to go out and do what they need to do.
Right. And are you seeing some signs of a recovery as far as the economy is concerned? I mean, if you look at the proportion of positive tests now, you're seeing they're sitting at 5.1%. Looking at the lesser number of those who are being tested, are those people getting back somewhat into the economy? Are they being active? Is that showing on the bottom line?
So we definitely saw the number of jobs that we lost last year. We have clawed back. We're not back at all where we were. But we're slowly but surely seeing it come back. And also depending on the sector, the hospitality sector, the tourism sector, very, very hard hit and still a long way to go. For us in our province, despite the difficult year, the agricultural sector has done very well. In actual fact, the agricultural sector grew by 18% last year, which was quite mind-blowing, thinking that we'd had such a tough year from lockdowns, etc. Yeah, we've lost many jobs. And of course, as government, this whole year has been finding that balance. We've got to make sure we protect lives, but at the same time, how are we getting the balance right with livelihoods as well? We've got a long way to go. And of course, everyone's looking forward to the vaccine rollout, and that's going to definitely help us a lot. We've also done lots of testing. We've already tested 1.4 million people for serology or antibodies, which is pretty good. It's shown us some details specifically around risk of people who are diabetic or high blood pressure. We're focusing in those areas to understand the risks. So, yeah, we've got to keep playing our part as government, and we've got to make sure that we help the citizens come along with us.
Yeah. You seem to have emphasized much of your strategy around the collection and the distribution of that data. I wonder if it is an approach taken by all your counterparts. Premier Zikalala, I mean, how big are you on the collecting of the data, particularly around how the pandemic has impacted the province and disseminating that widely?
Well, that is very key and fundamental, because it is important that we are scientific in what we are dealing with. Collection of data becomes a key instrument that tells us whether we are winning or not. And in our own case, we've got a provincial command council, but also we have a unit that is working within the Department of Health that collects data in terms of testing and screening programs, where we have reached more than 2.5 people in testing and screening, and we're doing very well. Secondly, we're also able to capture the data in terms of people who have vaccinated and those who are also who have registered for vaccination. And I think that instrument is working for us as the province. But more than that, we are grateful of number of volunteers who have came on board to work with us so that we are able to send the message across. Government have to communicate, but also communication is made easy if other stakeholders too are playing their role. And therefore, we commend the religious sector for the role they are playing in spreading the message. We commend the traditional leaders on the whole province, and we will quite salute them for the work they are doing in ensuring that they educate people on COVID-19 and its effect.
Right. And Premier, probably three areas, Premier Zikalala, that I want to touch with you that probably come up when we speak of KZN, for example. I suppose all sectors of government have been affected by this, but COVID-19 has left a trail of devastation in your government as well, with dozens of officials succumbing to the virus. How are you responding to that?
It has been very difficult. Both the Executive Council and the administration have suffered. May the soul of the departed compatriots rest in peace. Nevertheless, we have to push on. Yes, we are weakened, and we are, of course, we have experienced even a sad loss because of the departure of His Majesty. But we have to continue as the government, provide the leadership even in difficult times. In fact, the essence of leadership is prevailing not only when you deal with easy issues. The leadership essence is about dealing with difficult questions and be able to spell out the course of action going forward, even in difficult periods. We are quite devastated with the effect, but we're going forward. We are also encouraged by the very diverse economy, because the growth of the economy in the province, besides the effect of COVID-19, we continue to see some sectors growing quite well. Manufacturing, both auto as well as other sectors, we are still not that behind. Agriculture and forest, we are among the provinces that are performing well. Of course, we will know that a greater part of the economy is dependent on tourism, which has been highly affected, and we are working toward resuscitation of that economy, of that sector.
Yeah.
We're grateful to the initiative by the President, His Excellency President Ramaphosa, especially the issue of the infrastructure development. And it is key. It is going to ensure that we create more job opportunities, but also feed in other sectors of the economy.
Right. You're facing, for example, a staggering 700 million rands loss in tourism revenue. I mean, serious dwindling of revenue there. What options are you going for to make up for that loss in revenue in the province? Are you borrowing? Are there other sectors that you're looking into that can complement that?
Well, firstly, it is a question of stabilizing and ensure that we are not going into debt as the government of the province. Secondly, it is to ensure that we stabilize the sectors that are there by cushioning them and ensure that as they have suffered, that suffering is not that felt. For instance, in terms of our own SOEs, whether Itala or Growth Fund and others, we've said that let us intervene, see what incentives that are applicable that we can provide. In some cases, we've taken that we will defer rent payment and others to ensure that those who are operating in our SEZ and those who are operating in our industrial parks are supported so that they don't suffocate. So manufacturing is quite supported. We are also looking now on this incentive that is going to cater for tourism sector. While we know that we are suffering and we have suffered a decline in terms of our budget, but we believe we will be able to go out of this challenge and ensure that we prevail.
All right, we look at what's dominating issues around the economy in the Northwest. Largely the mining sector, of course, will dominate there, but we'll also look at Limpopo in terms of agriculture and tourism. When we come back from the break, do stay with us at Newsroom 405. That's where you tag us, or otherwise 072-110-5584. You can send us your questions and your comments tonight. We're back in a moment. You're on the newsfeed late night. Thanks for staying on in conversation tonight with the premiers of Limpopo, the Northwest Province, KwaZulu-Natal, as well as the Western Cape, Alan Windisi, Job Mokoro, and Stanley Matabata. All right, we see some of your WhatsApp messages and questions for the premiers coming through tonight. We'll get to those in a moment. Keep them coming on 072-110-5584. Premier Matabata, your plan for economic recovery, I see here your economic development, MEC, calls it a vigorous industrialization plan supported by strong agriculture and tourism. Just unpack that for us in broader details. I mean, which areas, for example, have you identified that need revitalization?
Remember, Limpopo is strong in, when you talk of your competitive advantages, economic competitive advantages. We are strong in tourism, agriculture, and mining. So what we are saying in that plan is that out of those sectors that I've identified, including tourism, despite the fact that tourism is normally not referred to as a sector, but because of its importance in this province, we categorize it as a sector. You know, it's not just part of the services sector, it's a sector. Just so that we can concentrate more effort, energy, and investment on it. So what we said is that because our economy is mainly dependent on primary products, we are producing chrome, we are producing platinum, we are producing purpose and everything, you know, agricultural products, vegetables and fruits. But what we are doing currently is exporting and selling those primary products as raw as they are. So what we are saying is that we need to diversify them, invest a lot of money in efforts of diversification. Hence, we're talking of the SEZ, Musina Makadu SEZ, where we are saying we are going to produce a lot of final products out of that SEZ. We are investing a lot of money in that. We are investing a lot of training in that. We already have investments. People who committed a lot of investment into that particular project, so that we can ultimately see to it that we revitalize our economy.
So let's talk. The SEZ project is an agro-processing project. Is that what you mean?
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
It's both agro-processing and it's also a manufacturing project, because even when it comes to, like, for example, you'll have your Venetia mine, which is producing diamonds and the like. We will be having diamond processing plants in that.
Let's talk about how far you are as far as the abattoir you wanted to acquire in the Waterberg. How is that project coming along? But not only that, there are other projects, for example, that you have identified in the other regions, the Bembe and the Waterberg districts as well, land reform projects. You had identified 7 mega ones there.
And even here in Capricorn, remember, in Capricorn we have identified an area where we said we are going to produce white meat. That will include chicken and the like. It's a very huge abattoir that we have already. We are at a very advanced stage in developing that abattoir. I think it's at about 95% completion. And then you'll have the Waterberg one, which is red meat, and you'll also have. Basically, what we are saying is that we are going into processing now. We are going into processing so that at the end of the day, we sell final products. Finished goods.
All right. And Premier Mokgoro, let's talk about where your interventions are focused right now. Which sectors are you opening up opportunities for small-scale farmers, maybe even small-scale mining companies, or at the level of procurement? Where are you focusing your priorities now?
Well, let's start with agriculture. We are in discussions with Agri Northwest to have a meeting. I think it will take place first or second week of April. In fact, I met with one of the executive a few days ago in a place called Colini, and you probably would remember its historic importance. And what we as the Northwest government will be putting on the table would be a proposal for a social pact. We also discussed this matter at the Executive Council meeting just yesterday. We recognize that we are an agriculture province, but we ought to do a lot more than we've been doing as government. We continue to applaud the business sector of agriculture for the wonderful work they're doing, as well as they did, as has been the case with the rest of the country, despite COVID. So certainly that is a partnership we're looking at strengthening. As part of the discussion, we will also be raising our concerns and coming up with proposals in the area of the Texas of South Africa, which is a place called Vryburg, where indeed that place is the Texas of South Africa. But we would like to see much greater inclusivity out there. So when we meet with Agri Northwest, in addition to talking about the social pact, we would also be highlighting the issue of ensuring that all sectors, all groupings within Vryburg and surrounding areas indeed are part of the Texas of South Africa, where we would like to see increasing volumes of export of beef and related products.
Now,
We are also
I'm going to come back to the other part, but I want you to just zoom in on that issue of the social pact. When you talk about social pact, I suppose you would want to say labor, government and private sector all cooperating, shared values of integrity, accountability, and so on and so forth. And one would really not have the level of confidence that one should, I suppose, have on the Northwest Province, considering, for example, the political uncertainty that exists there right now. I mean, how are you navigating that particular aspect, your own position itself being challenged, for example, by the IPC there?
Well, certainly, there's no way that I could pretend that, things are honky-dory. If you go back to our history as the Northwest, perhaps from the beginning of the third administration, second administration, the end of the second administration, from the beginning of democracy, one thing that has been a characteristic feature, sadly, of the Northwest are the very things that you're talking about. And I suppose over time these have worsened. And I think it is only men and women who have a sufficient sense of patriotism who should show the courage to lead and ensure that this very sad past of the Northwest comes to an end. And I'm one of those leaders who are determined to have that realized, notwithstanding the challenges that you're talking about.
And do you see that as an issue that could be a stumbling block? For example, the issue of the business forums, which I'm sure are quite critical to the economic recovery of the province. And there are those in the opposition who are saying the Premier has not dealt with these business forums, who are just a law unto themselves. They would probably, just go into, for example, the council offices there and raid those offices, create those council offices ungovernable. These are the issues that people are saying these could be detrimental towards the economic recovery of the province.
Yes, I agree with you, but I think where that kind of thing is prominent is at one municipality. And I'm talking about Matlosana, former Klaksdorp, and to some extent also the Tsobotla, the Lichtenburg area. There are 22 municipalities in this province, so let us just be careful not to generalize. The question about business fora is a matter that is closely related to the 30% as part of procurement, and it is a problem that is a burden to the rest of the country, not only in the Northwest. And again, although at face value, one is confronted by what appears to be anarchy and not respecting the laws, and there are a lot of elements of that. But the fundamental thing is people crying out to be included in economic activity. And our response should be to help create an environment where people, for instance, through going up the IDB rankings, that people are able to get process to participate in tandem with the laws of the country. Yeah. And we are doing projects and programs. We have programs such as Gukupile, for instance, where through training on the job, people are able to advance and to higher levels, so that in future they'll be able to participate in meaningful contracts. So our response to government is not to condemn. Our response as government is to say, let's work together.
But have you opened cases though? Against those who are literally destructing property.
Certainly it did not take us long before these people were apprehended. And again, you're talking about Matlosana. You're not talking about the entirety of the Northwest Province. Certainly, we did not spare any effort to make sure that that happens. The fact that people want inclusivity does not give them a right to do illegal things. And certainly whatever is contrary to the law is dealt with immediately without any waste of time. We continue to not only to monitor the situation in this part of the province. We are engaging with leaders there at government level, at government level, at party political level, and it's an ongoing effort. The other thing is, let's not run away and forget that the way we have planned and developed mining in this whole country, we have tended to forget about the future. Yeah. We have set up towns around mines, and we have left those towns derelict once the mining assets were consumed completely. So the approach to mining, therefore, should be, let's be more futuristic than we have been. Because what happens is you find these mining towns where people have settled with no jobs, and oftentimes this leads to crime. So yes, the immediate problem is that of the Northwest, but at the same time, in the medium to long term, I think South Africa must be alive to matters of training when it comes to mining exercises.
That's Premier Job Mokgoro there for the Northwest Province. Seem to have lost Premier Matabata, but we still have Premier Alan Winde and Sihlezi Galala, Premier of KZN. We'll continue next, and we'll talk to some of the issues that are coming out from those provinces as well that are challenging, I suppose, the leadership of the premiership in the various provinces. We'll take your questions as well at Newsroom 405. WhatsApp your questions tonight on 072-110-5584. We're back in a moment. Welcome back. The Premier's Roundtable continues now here on the news feed late night. Premier Alan Winde, Sihlezi Galala, Job Mokgoro, as well as Stanley Matabata with us tonight, and some of your thoughts coming through on WhatsApp this evening. Premier Galala, let's talk then about some of the questions that have come. I think a question has come around the credibility of the provincial government with the involvement of former mayor of eThekwini, Zandile Gumede. Many looking at her as a liability, and this of course also comes after the NEC of the ANC's decision that those who are implicated in serious crimes should step aside. What is the view of the Premier on her still existing in provincial government?
No, I'm not sure whether you are quite accurate. Ms. Zandile Gumede is not part of government, but is part of the legislature.
Yes.
And in government, you've got members who are led by the Premier as the Executive Council, which nationally will be the provincial cabinet, will be the national cabinet. So the Premier leads what is called the Executive Council or the Provincial Cabinet. And Comrade Zandile Gumede is not part of that, but is a member of the provincial legislature. And the provincial legislature plays an oversight, does not deal with the issue of the executive where you are implementing, where you've got MECs providing overall leadership, and then you've got officials implementing. So she's a member of the legislature. In as far as the ANC decision on step aside, we are going to discuss that in line with the ANC as they have, the NEC have resolved that there will be engagement between the national officials and provinces, but there will then be engagement with the NWC and subsequently the NEC.
Yeah. Are you watching closely the situation unfolding in eThekwini as far as the position of the deputy mayor is concerned? That is a critical position, wouldn't you say? And the kind of contestation that is currently going on there.
Of course, but I'm not sure whether there is contestation, because the deputy mayor is chosen among councillors who are there and is chosen on the basis of each party preferring or presenting its own nominees, who then become deputy mayor from the EXCO, of course. And we are quite close to that process. We have managed to ensure stability in eThekwini, and we will continue to work with the mayor and everyone there to ensure that the city is stabilized. We are now working hard to ensure that we improve services in various localities within the municipality.
The other issue that you mentioned earlier on, Premier, is the issue of development projects that the province is embarking upon. One of those projects is the relocation of the Virginia airport, and this has raised quite a bit of a stir, I suppose, in the province. Many saying you're not giving compelling reasons why the airport should be moved, economic reasons, that is.
Well, the issue is still within the discussion. I think it should be remembered that the airport was supposed to be relocated under the previous administration, but that didn't happen. And we've since said to eThekwini municipality, engage with communities. This is a private airport. And if you move them from where you are and you develop that city, that area into something that is connected to eThekwini, it then means you have eThekwini, you have that Virginia, then you have Umhlanga, you have Palito, and then all of that will be connected in one property development, hospitality, industry, and then it becomes a mega platform that is helpful in terms of growing hospitality industry and the property. Yeah. So it is important. But also we've said the Virginia airport will not be collapsed, but relocated to the south of Durban, especially because we've got the airport that was there before. Use it for now, but relocate to the Manzimtoti area, where they will then be they will be stationed permanently and have that airport there. That then also create a link with the South Coast, which currently have no airport except the Margate airport. So it is within that planning to ensure that there is that link of all of these key sectors of the economy.
And what about the emergency services? They're also saying this will impact the emergency services for those who are within that immediate area who are relying on that airport.
Of course, they've got Dube Trade Port with King Shaka International Airport. Some will be located there and some will be on the south. And therefore, if you say they need services, they can then go to King Shaka International Airport, which is about 20 kilometers away, 10 minutes away or less.
Right, that is the Premier there of KwaZulu-Natal. Premier Wendy, there are issues, of course, in your province as well, including the report by the acting public protector on the MEC Madikizela. Are you ignoring that outcome?
Definitely not. I mean, we've got to respect the Office of the Public Protector. So we received that yesterday. I know that MEC Madikizela is contesting the finding. He is asking for legal advice. And, of course, within the next 14 days or 13 days now, he needs to come back to me so that I can then, obviously, I must then react within 14 days of receiving it. And as I said, I received that yesterday. He's disputing it, but we have to obviously let that process follow, and then I will be able to make a statement on it.
All right. Let's talk then about the Provincial Training Institute of Cromrie. What is the thinking around that institute?
So we've had this institute for a while, Cromaria, as we call it. It's an internal training institute of where our government officials get trained. But in this year's budget, what we have, I think the learning from COVID-19 and what really has impressed me is how we've enabled innovation during this last year. And so we're going to look at that training institute as an enabling institute for really getting innovation in government going. So, for example, people highly at risk during COVID-19 were elderly people queuing at our clinics and our hospitals, especially elderly and people with comorbidities. We brought an innovation in through partnerships where we now deliver those medicines to people's homes. So people get medicines. 1.2 million people have now received their medicines delivered to their homes. And so that's really great innovation. How do we enable it even more? And so that's how we're looking at rejigging this training institute to enable our government employees to become more and more innovative, because that's how we will get better citizen service delivery, how we'll come up with new ways of more efficient, more cost-effective, and definitely make the biggest difference or the biggest impact. So, I mean, innovation is what really stood out for me in the last year, and how do we really enable that going forward?
Right, let's go to WhatsApp now and take some of the questions. This one from Martin, it's for both, I suppose it's for Premier Matavata, Premier Mokgoro, as well as Premier Zikalala. Northwest Limpopo and KwaZulu-Natal are predominantly rural. What programs are in place to support rural communities where health facilities are not comparable with those in the urban areas of these provinces? That's Martin in King Williamstown. Premier Matabata, let's begin with you. I mean, what programs are you putting in place to support the health facilities in particular?
We are trying very hard. We've got a lot of programs that we are implementing to assist the health facilities. As you would notice, the MEC was running around the province with a team of specialists, identifying where we've got where I can say the province is overheating in terms of health facilities. They would use that team of specialists, is doctors, different kind of doctors, specializing in different fields. They will take them there. For example, the biggest problem was in orthopedic surgeon, where people would stay for a very long time with broken limbs, broken hands, and all these kind of things. Then the MEC would take a team of specialists to a particular hospital, Cilium, for example, and spend the whole day there, deal with the backlog, go to another one. Within the department itself, there is a team of professionals which identifies areas where we've got huge backlogs. And then the MEC would then send a team of doctors there to go and deal with the kind of backlogs that way. But at the same time, we've got a recruitment strategy. We are putting in place incentives to incentivize young doctors and young specialists to come to the province. And I think we are winning in as far as that is concerned, because we are, you'll remember, last year we had the first successful heart plant at Mankweng Hospital, which therefore says, that is something that you wouldn't even have imagined some few years back.
Yeah.
The issue of ambulances, we are buying 50 ambulances every year. For the past, I think, 6 or 7 years, we have been doing this. As a result, we no longer have a backlog when it comes to the issue of ambulances, where people would die or some would give birth at home because they don't have access to ambulances. Road infrastructure is another problem that we had identified. Hence, we came up with a road building master plan, which identifies special, very important areas such as hospitals, economic centers where you've got a lot of economic activity and all these kind of things. Thank you.
Right. Premier Mokgoro, I'll give you the final word here because of time. Let me just take one more question that has come through. They would like to hear from the premiers what is their take on the impact of illegal immigration on service delivery in the respective provinces. So I'll give that to you, Premier Mokgoro.
Yes, indeed. I think that is quite a challenge. Whatever we do, we have to take into account what our Constitution provides for, so that the fact that a person is an immigrant, that person is not necessarily, by virtue of being an immigrant, denied such opportunities. In the education sector, for instance, one issue that we're tackling is that when we have learners who are from migrant families, we allow them in our schools, and lo and behold, once we get to grade 12, they're not able to get their certificates precisely because of documentation challenges. And these are the issues that we're dealing with Home Affairs to handle and make sure that we're able to manage these. Of course, another area is the impact, in fact, it has on our health sector, health facilities. Right. So again, on the one hand, there are constitutional, including international protocols, right, that we have to observe. So we have to improve the efficiency with which we work, ensure that the way we treat our community health workers, who go to various outlying areas where you often find many of our migrant people coming for social services, that the work they do is supported in terms of the way to treat them, the facilities, we give them the tools of trade, we give them. There is no question that is a major challenge. It is a challenge that we deal with national government. We cannot address these challenges on our own.
Let's leave it there for today. Gentlemen, I appreciate your time, and thank you very much for joining us for our very first Premier's Roundtable here on the Newsfeed Late Night. Alan Windy, Sihlezi Galala, Job Mukhoro, and Stan Matabata. And thank you as well for coming through with your questions tonight.